We begin by setting a motivation to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment in order to benefit all living beings. We understand that to attain that state, we must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. To perfect those trainings in turn, we must have a very thorough understanding of what they are. And to gain that understanding, we must be able to rely upon an unmistaken text or presentation. With this in mind, we are here this morning to hear some verses from what is known as the King of Mind Training texts, the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, that's composed by the great master Shantideva.
탑절을 투지 전부도 덤바니 안 덤바샤자 도바 아니 가서 세지 차니 예산의 영향적인 뒤체고 루선 넘바 쿨러 추궁을 도저소 어디를 조금 봐세.
And that, as we normally do, we begin by setting up the merit field in the space in front. In actual fact, our own root guru, in the aspect of the Guru Manindra Shakyamuni Buddha, who is there seated in the Vajra posture with one face and two hands, with an alms bowl filled with nectar in the nature of pure light. And all around us we're surrounded by all kind mother sentient beings without exception.
Ranga Tawal Magna Simja Deda Tamja and Chig Redu Sosu Dungen Nashamba Kanchela number and because me number because of the me Namju Yetikinchi and the Lama Tubia Ombo Kuson to Yuen Tene and the Latana Yijig to Mundo Tevat in the Yetik Kumbashe.
And that's though the sentient beings all around us are denizens of the 6 realms of existence, they are capable of understanding this situation with human intelligence. And so, like us, they are looking towards the merit field, the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha, and have a deep appreciation of the qualities of enlightenment, which subsequently inspires the pure faith, manifest faith, and the faith of conviction.
And Lama to be on Bati, Joe Omka, Temba Amo, Tua whom we some set up, Tuga Hunle, where Sapato member turn, and she Ramjan never, and Ishiba Ola the Chabachenta, Ishiba the Lama to be number gender, only on Chulama Chesu, Mijo Ujendi to Kumasha.
And that the figure in front of the Guru Manindra Shakyamuni Buddha is marked by the 3 syllables, Om at the crown, A at the throat, and Hung at the heart. And from that Hung at the heart center, light rays emanate, going out into the pure realms, inviting back the wisdom beings and the empowering deities. The wisdom beings dissolve into the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha. The powering deities confer the nectar of empowerment, some of which overflows at the crown, spontaneously producing the figure of Akshobhya.
Tende lama tuya omboti, and gasore, Nishiba, rangi kasade dunga nangala setebe lama tuya omboti, and Yishiba was shuneta, but Kasode, what Yishiba was shun years as a what in the Kombashe, Takancha. Tende lama tuya ombote, and chicken Namjushiba nation, Kunda Sora, Telekomaship, Mosonko Yishiba shooting, what did you? Because of the range tungi nagala was about show you some Narazo society junkie, and it goes you to channel show yours, and it then there, and it took us all, and it took tuba pardon or tuba pardon member turn, and it because of the Shingram, because of that judge, Madame Shingla, and it by some member to a channel, and it got subject to because of the two Lama Dunga said the Lama to team. Kasha ya pardon member turn ya, subject member to a chivachatope. What did they take back to? That was a Mickey make it, but tell us who you get. What did you come shit?
And with the dissolution or the dissolving of the wisdom beings in the merit field figure of Shakyamuni Buddha, we really feel that this is kind of a fully empowering the Buddha, who becomes for us a perfect medium for the purification of negativities on the one hand and the accumulation of positive merit on the other. In other words, a fully qualified merit field. And that also that the whole scenario that we're visualizing is one of tremendous busyness with the emanations of the Buddha going out to ripen the minds of those who have not yet been ripened, and to further ripen the minds of those who have been ripened. And so there's constant coming and going in a very busy thoroughfare of action in the space in front of us.
What did the combat then any took a Dumbegi and you ended to get the ranch bottom to Shanti quality of a tablet. Kula Tuji Chimoni remember your pentaba mata Tamjaka Twensiki, Garazu to Tuja, Garazu to the Lamla, Garazu to the Uba Sanjaba in Pach. And what the lecture and you ended to get the train, she began a diet of Yishikatava, Mundugata, what in the chick combat.
And so also we have this contemplation on the wonderful qualities of the enlightened being. They have no fear of suffering in relation to themselves, have skill in means in reducing the fear of suffering in others, work for others with great compassion without a moment's bias, and benefit all without ever expecting any benefit in return. That the Buddha has for our sake, generated the mind of enlightenment, and for our sake, practiced on the path, and for our sake, completed full and complete enlightenment. And so from our appreciation thus, we generate that pure faith, that manifest faith in the faith of conviction.
Lama to be almost a Tambuna Sanki, Joe, but the Garas Nation let Tamboachi, Chiwa Kunde Indigenci, and it then and it Nomu Sine, and Nomola Captain Chane, and it rather Nomota ranches in Yili Sine, and ranches that Nomo Vanilla Captain Chane, Garas to Lano over to Sanjo, and Garazule Garazo dedication to Rawach Kaistua. Oh, why did this to 22? Again to get the tenor, and then the two again, and do watching a letter. Lama two Amulito, I let you watch you are some such thing. To you can do water at your good one. We need to water at your good one. What are to get the Kombashe and the Kombashe and the Chicaso the Simjaka Dunga Nawala, Monsieur Ninja. Lama to be on board, and you ended to get the tension and a debache. Direct away, you check it over, won't do it over what they say. And it's subject that don't let you develop and the chimor, temper, temper short, don't let you that temper, chimor, temper, short. 아니 가서 동네에 대화도 민자를 치모라 민자와 주지 민자와 다기지가 대다지는 얼마나 두려워 뭐 챙길라도 쓰고 어디에 용안에 따라서 일이 차단의 대화지 뭐요는 매나 탐매봐 근데도 일이 차단되고 단열은 치모라 내가 주지 내가 쇼트 내가 다기지긴 있어 아니 대다지는 얼마나 두려워 뭐 챙길라도 쓰는데 저걸 때는 얼마나 두려워 두저였어 봐도 매봐 트네 토마메 디바데 디바지데 켜봐도야 델레 체메시가 똑같게 말아 봐도 디바데 막 장소서 체메시가 똑같게 봐자 그래서 쌤저 탐전에 계속 쓰고 공부하죠.
So also we have the understanding, that the Buddha was not enlightened from the outset, that the Buddha started like us as a beginner, subject to karma and the mental afflictions as we are. But the Buddha then, on recognizing the destructive force of the mental affliction, really started the process of opposing the influence of mental afflictions, had really looked into the problem of self-cherishing and the great release of cherishing others, and was able to counteract one with the other. And then, developed that mind of enlightenment for our sake, and trained on the path, and finally attained enlightenment. And so this is important to understand, that we could have that same hope, that same expectation. We have those initial qualities, the same as the Buddha had. And so we must have that certain confidence that we can do the same as the Buddha. We can follow in the footsteps of the Buddha just like that. And so it's important, very important, to recognize that actuality, and to be able to really habituate so much to all of what the Buddha went through and habituated toward. So, for example, in this scenario, we have that sense of real feeling of the suffering of all the beings in the 6 realms of existence. And so our heart is filled with compassion. By reflecting on the qualities of enlightenment in the mirror field above, we have that faith of the pure faith, manifest faith, and faith of conviction. And we really have that sense of how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings, for example, happiness and the causes of happiness, may that be the case. I will see to it that it is the case. So Guru Devi, please bless me to make it so. And how wonderful if all sentient beings are free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May it be the case. I will see to it that it is the case. Oh Guru Devi, please bless me to make it so. How wonderful if all sentient beings had the happiness that knows no suffering, and the excellent bliss of liberation. May this be the case. I will see to it, O Guru Devi, please bless me to make this so. And realizing too that, having these great sentiments and these aspirations are pointless when our mind is so dominated by discrimination. And so we also make this fervent supplication and prayer. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that hold some close and others distant. May this be the case. I will see that it is the case. O Guru Devi, please bless me to make it so. And so in this particular case, we really make this very sincere, supplication, and then from the mirror field above, the Buddha responds, sending, countless rays of the 5-colored lights, the ascending nectar lights, and they dissolve into us, hereby purifying all negativities and obscurations that we have accumulated since beginning this time in general, and in particular, really eradicating the obstacles to our being able to really develop the 4 immeasurable thoughts to their perfection. And indeed, we have that purifying light of clearing away the obstacles, and the golden yellow light of endowing us with the true potential to gain an understanding of the 4 immeasurables to the point of realization.
다 된데 제도에 누가도 술을 줬으나 라마 투베 엄베 공바 토바이나 샘제는 감도 메와 발라냐와 아니 지게 되게 지다 와셔도 아니 뭐도 줘 이제 킹거 요바 인사 아니 지제 샘제고 돌만 줘 메바 인도 아니 와다디 공바도 마도 타면도 아니 라마 투베 엄베 게 아니 유엔된 되게 뭐 투베 토네 아니 라마 투베 엄베 공바도 줘봐 지기 삼산지 제네 아니 디체도 다 공바도 버려 계속 줘발라 그것도 되네 이제 계속 줘봐다 라발라 아니 계속 줘베게 슝이 깨보다고 아니 전주고 슝인데 아니 라마 투베 엄베 검시방 아니 아니 뭐 전주고 슝게 제시 팀이 내주세
And so, we have this acute understanding of all sentient beings and the way in which, on the one hand, they are so much wanting the happiness and being bereft of that happiness, and so much wanting to avoid suffering, yet being inundated by that suffering. We, as much as we have that kind of strong desire to really change that situation further, and we realize how limited we are, and that we can't even, fulfill the purpose of even one sentient being. But it's very clear that when we look around, we see that it's only from the enlightened perspective, from the point of view of Buddha, who has the understanding of the dispositions and aspirations and karmic implications of all sentient beings, therefore, and can truly help all others. So it's us in knowing, those qualities, have an appreciation of those qualities, and really having an understanding of them, that we ourselves, again, can truly make a kind of realistic aspiration to emulate those qualities. And so, and this requires, of course, our entering into and perfecting all the activities of the children of the conquerors, the Bodhisattva practices. And that means the 6 perfections and the 4 ways of accumulating disciples, etc. And so with that in mind, we have this really remarkable opportunity now to listen to an actual kind of training manual, the Bodhisattva's way of life, in just how to do that.
로아다 된데게 계세게 줘발 라발래 아니 지금 미일로 된지 마도바이나 가서라다 지금 통계 마상 와서 차기도 와 미일로 된지 바네 평금도 된적을 되지 많이 바이나 미일로 된지 바선데 항사에 개미도 다 된적을 되지 바이나 아니 계세 줘발 라비에게 다 간자 지금 가서 통계에서 창기도 와안 된데 이제 단다 소소 미 류데니 디나네 된적을 류데니베 갑딜라 아니 먼저 삽사지 제마도 바이나 아니 취소 된데기 니에 고급 용거에서는 어디다 가보러 와 단다 위협하지 아니 답을 야보자 아니 된적을 류den게 닝부터 가르샤 닝불 내게 가르샤서는 다 타바다 탐색협의 주주배들도 타바다 탐색협의 주주 좀 마도 바이나 아니 된적닝부 고대부터 된적은 닝부 된적을 류den 쓰는데 타바다 탐색협의 주투에게 니버 유근게 아니 류den들 된적을 류den 쓰기도 와 로아 쓰기도 다 된데게 지금 좀 마도 아니 된적을 류라 닝부 레마도 버와 된데 이마 인사 된데 이마 인사 다 지금 삽삽의 지유여나 다 다리 제게 다 둘레레 되도 와 어디들도 어디가 돼 말도 그게 공부 잘해체
And to be able to really work on these activities of the children of the conquerors, the Bodhisattva practices, we need a human rebirth. Not only that, but we need that precious human rebirth of the leisures and endowments. And so it's kind of really recognizing the full value of that is so important at this stage, that now that we have it, that we understand that we have it, therefore, we must be extremely careful with how we use this great advantage of a precious human rebirth. And that means it's really not only like having a human rebirth, but really having the actual leisures and endowments described in the point of view of having a precious human rebirth. And that's so important that we do not waste that opportunity, but rather take the essence. And what is the essence? The essence is to use this opportunity in every way to accumulate the causes for liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. And that is, in fact, what defines a human rebirth as a precious human rebirth. That is that which is put into service to accumulate the causes of liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment.
Right. Because Danjogo Ludos Mikombe Nele Dewasaka, Churtuala Mikombe Nele Dewatilla, Tanga Gaze Jamna Majamna, Churtubege, a Mikomba T, Nele Dewatilla, Danjogo Ludeski Yorba. Then the Churtube and Mikomba Detate, Motobachin, and to get it, Takajaji Mikombe on the Mason, Mikombe Nele Dewati, that Tapsi Jegudwa.
And so what distinguishes a precious human rebirth from just a regular rebirth, a human rebirth, of course, is the kind of sense of having the freedom to be able to dedicate oneself to spiritual practice. And that, you know, in large, we are free of the non-freedoms, the non-leisures. We have these leisures, which means that we're freed from any inconducive kind of circumstances, and we have conducive circumstances, therefore, to allow us to be able to really dedicate ourselves to the spiritual practice. So we should see this as a very important kind of opportunity that must not be lost.
No, Eta rather Nyawada Yida, the Dodal Hazarin Bota, and it Jikaso Lalo that to get the cigarette. That is a mavachan was a mobile time internet go quiet the less understand go to. Dear Mikoma just so good one. And to get there, Jikaso the Rangi Casole. To get the Rangi control you, but Peju Yore, you know, choosing you should substitute dinner to there by Yina. And yeah, dear Mikoma so good one. Should to well Mikoma so good one. And to get the Compassia, Castle, so be Peju down with it. 소수 뒤 생활도 마서와 뒤 소수 옹자나 유에 되겠지 란 뒤 생활도 마서와 제티 양코 배주 땅고도 땅고로와 아 소수 뒤 생활도 더네 아니 다 디면은 다 니코도면도 미세사선 디면도 라바 주에 매겨 소라한테 미공바 차기도 와 되게 내가 공부 시작고 스케치 뭐 인사를 다들 지금 주제가 두주지 뭐 인사
And so some of these non-freedoms are described in the list of the non-freedoms of being born as an animal, as a hungry spirit, as a hell-realm being, as a long-lived celestial being as well. And these all kind of render one without necessary leisure and freedom to be able to engage in spiritual practice. But we must also include, like in terms of the modern aspects, an addiction to mobiles and the internet. Surely this counts as a non-leisure actually as well, isn't it? And that when we are, 24/7 just dominated by the internet, what's going to happen, what's on the mobile and so on, it means that we are not in control of these devices, but we are controlled by them. And surely that counts as a non-leisure, that we have, allowed this kind of a lack of freedom to control our lives. And so, of course, there's a valid use for technology. There's a valid use for mobiles and internet. That goes without question. But what is questionable is that when we, go to sleep and the first thing we do when we wake up in the morning is grab the mobile and want to see what's going on. And this is a case of where you are out of control. You are controlled by the device itself. And this must count as another lack of freedom, which robs us of a precious human rebirth as well. So we normally talk about 8 non-freedoms. This could be the 9th, saying it.
what the Dakaja Kaina Mena Dakaja Naranzuke me lieutenant, how to the Danjogo lieutenant catch him in batch. Do I catch him in batch? That's Chambayina and T Tabata Tamji came a salad to Casoda. Do not see the Sungudwa. Do Casoda board cigarette. Tabata Tamji came a salad to and do not see this. Ruata de Sungudwa. Me to la tene necessary, Nazo me leading and to la tene, and the Casada Dunga Chubole and Jawachiguris. Dunga together, that coy Dunga together, shoot up sort of pechane. That to sing the Chulaten road, what? And to Dunga Chubutele and Jawachiguris. The Tala, Jawachiguris, Jawachos. Then they go to the chin and Yakavasa. Then they go to the Tandana Debaina, Chele and Junior your Maris. Yakawinza. And Mongbasta, the because of the Takaja Mashima and Mon Mades, Rotakaja Casota Momba, Tuso, Nimalo Stakan, Tangarazo, Momba, Nomobe Shawan, the Cuting Aratolata, Mon Made. Tanda de Mi Ludenito, Tina, Danjogo Ludenito, did you Cabaret, to Sambujas, do it. And Casada Takaja, Tuso, the Tabatamja Chamber. To again and 20 years ago, then they could do so. No more when you learn a Mades, no more when you learn a Mades. Momba do so, Nima loss.
So that we really need to kind of evaluate this precious human rebirth in a different way of seeing it as being, I mean, something so rare and so precious. And they describe that, it's often described as the boat which can carry us across the great ocean of suffering, of cyclic existence, to the state of enlightenment. And that's something that it's kind of very, quite an accurate description. And therefore we should use every moment of this kind of like opportunity to its maximum. And that it's so important to, in doing so, to recognize how hard it is to attain this position, and how much the kind of ignorance of our mindset can rob us of this opportunity. And so we must not kind of fall under the control of that ignorance, which is counterproductive to our being able to make the most of the boat of the precious human rebirth that we have. And therefore it's kind of important to recognize that all mental afflictions are that which stand in the way of being able to fulfill the potential that we have in this precious human rebirth.
What and the Digging Arazo Chicasole, Digging and Arazo Chicasole, Shogal Lamban and Managa, but the Digging Punch and Arazo, Twinja Carto, and Kari Gagan Chigito, and the Gagan the Terra Tapshikan Seguto, and the Twinja de Sawade, to the Shukcha the Tanya Carichaguto, and the Chicaso, the Tabata Tamji Chamba Yoba, the Trivial Luden Yakshu the Carisha. They do what Janju said, the Tony to be Sheraki. Then the Janju said the Tony to be Sheraki, Namju Shenda Midaj go to. The Namju Shenda Midaj go to that me, Lieutenant Namju the Kaburwa. Me, Lieutenant, and the Danjo Lieutenant, and the Deacon that Getchabush chat to do. That the day in Bayinza, what that Chicaso the Chica Gasola, that the nigga 20 years getting the table cup, and another subject Jamatu Ina, and the day. And the Chua Namchi Yeme into, and the Namchinata, short Rangalana, short, but a touch over one. Touch your Saduta, Tada, you ever got the Lataka, Riba Jim Jen, Taka, can't to and guess a job love to a better go.
So therefore, to really dedicate ourselves from the moment we get up in the morning till the time we go to sleep at night, to dedicate ourselves to making the very most of this great boat of a precious human rebirth is so important. And that means that we are constantly seeking out to create the conducive conditions whereby we can fulfill this potential. and really avoiding and eradicating inconducive conditions that can really obstruct us in our potential. And so it's very important that knowing that we have this human basis to question then, what is the best way I can use this? What is the way I can really what must I prioritize in order to really take the essence of this life? That means we are using every moment to lay down the causes for the mind of enlightenment and the emptiness, the wisdom of realizing emptiness. This is the most important things we can do. And in recognizing, how difficult it is to attain this human life, not to mention a precious human life. Therefore, we can really, add an extra degree of importance to prioritizing how we use this time we have, this short time that we have, because we know death is coming. Death is definite. We know the time of death is indefinite. And so therefore, it's definitely going to happen. We can't avoid it. And so therefore, we have to be very, very careful that we are not simply wasting our time, but we are prioritizing this very short time that we have to make the very, very most of it.
아니 가서데 가서 말아줘 지금 최 팀브리지 롭종제 최 팀브리지 신고 여바제 아니 레로고 온도스 친전 아니 최대 뒤주 딱다를 좀 하도와 임바이나 아니 남시나 어다 치원예들 레온도 아니 랑게 류기 때문에 제마도 삼리턴에 제마도에 갑자기 켜온도 아니 지금 어다 암지게 제가 다오수면도 되면도 다오주면도 되면도 아니 신의 교바기 그래 당에 뺏사소스 나게마 수부 탕보 내다 야부 유백하다 아니 게 레로 온듯이 당에 전체도 다 뺏사소 삼사 아니 교바기를 된 치자와 차오르와 당에 저게 좀 맞고 저 뺏사소 삼사 쳐버리나 단단해 거로 제투베 두준에 거 구급심전에 구급심데 제발은 거 교바 매바친 거로 내가 그 돈다 좀 뭐도 뜻이 개체 뭐 말해 먼저 점점 지금 내가 그 소소 내가 잡아된다 총 잡아된다 아니 저 된대 저 아니 저 돈다 좀 뭐도다 뒤막기바 제전에 아니 지금 최주배 전쟁가 매우선 대되기도 와 그리고 내가 들이 약보 매변에 선이 약보 용시 그래 들이 약보 여바 이내 선이 약보 매바 용시 거기 내다 그 멜번게 남신 내시래 들이 니마 샤고 여바 이내 야 선이 잡아자그리야 다 또선 잡아자고 겐지다 때는 그 좋아 되게 좋아 되게 그래 뭐도 되게 세도 그 땡도 되게 주고 여러 된데서 땡게 되게 둘라 만요 받지 저 가르도 땡게 되게 줘야 주가리샤 천재 가르샤 네 개치슈지 디제바이나 내가 그 되게 생각도 그 사테베트래 그 딜 때는 용데 그래 수수리 개쳐볼게 말이야 얘는 두고를 내 개치슈 안기 땅볼에 샤바이나 아니 땡게 되게를 받지 그래 초개면도 와
And so that's, when we are kind of like engaging in the Dharma. Now we've heard the message, we've talked about, how important it is to take the essence of our precious human rebirth. And we initially, started off with great enthusiasm to engage in spiritual practice. But, as so often happens, a laziness sets in that prevents us from really doing what we had set out to do, that we procrastinate, that we kind of forever put things off. And then, death suddenly arrives. We're failing health, we go to the doctor tells us that we have 3 months left or 6 months left. And then the massive regrets come. You say, oh no, now it's too late. I've kind of left it too late. I should have really put the effort in when I was physically and mentally fit. And now I just don't have the wherewithal to do anything of much value at all. And so you want to avoid that situation, really think about how you're going to really grasp the opportunity that you're given right now. There's no sense in procrastinating. There's no sense in putting it off. and that you know, that in don't worry about all of life that is taking place all around you. You know, the work that you're doing, how the business is going, and so on. That these should not be something that interferes with the training of your mind. That is of paramount importance. That, you know, you have good days and you will have bad days. There's nothing stable about it. It's the very nature of this cyclic existence. And that, you know, that the way you know, moods change and the conditions change is like the Melbourne weather. There is nothing kind of stable at all. It's different from moment to moment. And so these conditions, then you must kind of, you know, really use all of what's out there externally happening to ensure that you can establish the causes for definite happiness. You know, that yes, you have your temporary happiness, but that's more like a side effect, you know. That's your little thrills that happen every now and again. But what you are about is setting down the causes for something which is a permanent state of happiness. And that must be the priority.
我的这个说这个当个蛮多节的，其他个就这个，刚才台北这边去了，没把有的三节了台北有的，俺确实中国这个有的也那样，俺这个刚才联络了，说了讲话眼线个联络了说吧，纪录片联络了说吧，他天天了小钱钱呢，俺搞哈这个有的吧，哈这个有的，因为他但就嘛说那个就住，但就嘛讲那个就钱，我他这个的三路单呢，俺搞。刚突突给，他说的接突别了，他别准接去，我的那人他，我这里那当着我的国他，可在多呢，可在刚才有吧，有呢，我刚才set up给，他不是忙过去用这个的，所以我想吧，有找么要的，这个说的，这个兵家啦说吧要的。他感觉这个경제忙不团的找有个说结合有的，但那当忙不起的话，感觉刚才测试呢，或这个萝卜这个多啊，热我接不上去多啊，但给我起码是的他他可是的说个就估计3毛多，那看他是没多啊，他给钱是吧？给我起码配这的话，他感觉这个给我起码了蛮多的，他是要嘛的。他是要嘛的，可蛮多我介绍要嘛的，他给我起码就装的，给我起码个第几是的，彻底说给我做到嘛做了哪里这个多，给我做了第几用不着，给我嘛做了第八三了都爱用不着，他第一个他是什么看没多，他第一个我第一切都他给钱的多，那老多他点这个绿的就他把他们这看别个古龙看呢，第一切都就做的呢。아니 타바다 탐제 치마 마토게 바게 아니 저게 그서도 퉁게 되게 되고 사이트 에퍼처 용되기도 다 되서 아니 담가 만로 왔잖아 담가 만로 왔지디 개침버도
So it's important to make the unmistaken choice, you know, really, you know, we can really be thwarted completely by laziness, even though we have these positive intentions. The laziness of engaging in multiple negative activities, the laziness of really procrastination, etc., of defeatism and so on. But it's kind of really important to kind of put that aside and say, look, I don't have the time to entertain these kinds of laziness. Now I must press go. I must really do the best I possibly can, really. And we know that ourselves, what is the best effort that we can make, and to dedicate ourselves to that and kind of really going, you know, it's so important to recognize just how foundational this life is. And that on the one hand, you know, you of course meet with problems in this life, difficulties, but we have ways of kind of gaining assistance and help, whether it's from the government or from our friends, from our relatives. You know, we have possibilities to overcome our difficulties in this life. But in the next life, you know, all we have to depend on are the causes that we lay down in this life. And that's really important to recognize. Therefore, it's more important to really look after what the next life could be. And that means that we really are, have to understand that the happiness that we might or might not experience in the next life depends upon the causes that we are laying down in this life. And that means that, kind of like the causes of attaining liberation and the omniscient state and enlightenment are the most important that we should be considering. All of those causes are what's going to guarantee us the positive future life. And of course, that is far more important than just this life. This is something we should understand, that the job of what we have before us in this life is to guarantee a positive future life.
근데 이 말인사 먼저 지금 타바다 탐색 전부 돼 되게 내단 그래 지금 연구 요번에 이 타바다 탐색 전부 누구도 누구 모두 어디 삼로다니 계자 타바다 탐색 전부 누구도나 어디가 가지 이 가서래 계기 받은 것이 타바다 탐색 전부 뭐서 균에 팽거도나 어디 야고 임받은 것처 받잖아. 아니 딜라 때네 아니 소소지 강해 좋아다 타바 탐색 기발 누구도 누구부터 어디 뒤샤 삼사 강해 전에 개켜봐면도 솜쳐지고 기계 좋아 임반 어디 타바 탐색 기발 누구도 어디 누구부터 다 야고 종샤 삼사 좀 물어봐 어디 세샤자 타바다 탐색 기발 누구도 팽거도 누구도 어디 된대지 뭐처에 돈을 심어이나 아니 랑라티 가서래 지금 랑쪽 삐다고 지어봐 랑조 삐더고 뒤에 미신날 강에 태그 말이야.
And so really, when we need to clarify for ourselves whether what we are experiencing or what we are about to do is going to be helpful or harmful, we just simply need to put it into the context of whether or not it is going to be helping me towards liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, or creating an obstacle to the attainment of liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. And so this is the only question we need to ask, and that whether it's harmful or whether it's beneficial towards the goal of laying down the causes for a liberation and the state of enlightenment. And that means that, when we encounter difficulties and problems in life, it's the same question. Is the way I'm going to choosing to deal with this problem, is it going to be helpful towards, is going to be conducive towards attaining liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, or is the way I'm reacting going to be an obstacle? And so very important that we are able to make the unmistaken choice in all these situations. And that when we are able to kind of look upon all of what occurs in life as a conducive cause for the attainment of liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, then we can conclude, oh, good, great, that is absolutely fine. And it's so important that we have this kind of excellent attitude to life, so that actually there can be no problems in life.
pen 차샤만 다 딜레 삼로 다운데 아니 소소 호가 동네에 중앙이나 아니 동네디 어디 레니바사나 레니바사게 타바다 탐제케 봐 개그래 다 레니베 데보면 봐 다바를 야보 종스 삼산 용구로 봐 아니 다가는 생게 다 저마다 레니바사 좀 모두 삼산게 아니 저게 꾸마 지에지 지금 가서 롭종 대경 소리 차기도 디 장소랑게 소리 다 레니바사 좀 모두다 레니바사나 소소로 먹어야 동네도 용구도 다스네 아니 지금 다 대경 소리지 안 디야 다디 레다서 많이 받잖아 가서 딱 끝내다네 먼저 디스를 왔다 가서다 당마 마진 쓰죠 당마 마무 거라 당 라트긴 소리 정도도 당마 배 가서 답에 지금 델레 용거리 다스 당마 델레 다스 멤버잖아 배 가서 영화라 라트긴 소리죠 다 레니바사서 동네 델레 용거리 다스는 영화라 라트인 거죠 다 당마 마진 소리 차고도 왔다 들은 거 다 오, 대 동해 다 직사 동해대 사주 문도서 어떻게도 삼사자. 근데 타바다 탐제 김에게 경계를 줘 되게도 와. 그러나 다 되게 중간에 되게 아니 레상보 사바라 텐데 중간에 레장보 망아 사고다. 디야 단다도 코에 되게 다 타바다 탐제 김에 되게 사토바 지고 다서 어떻게 소리지. 어떻게 소리 타바다 탐제 김에게 아니 줄을 줘 되게도 와. 다들 어떻게 바지나 아니 타바다 탐제 김에 줄을 줘고도 조금도 아니 들라때네 아니 랑게 셈디네 가와 용에다 아니 지금 저바 층부요 이 층부 용에도 용부로 와.
So, for example, when suffering arises, we need to train the mind into immediately categorizing this as, this is definitely arisen from a negative cause that I accumulated. And therefore, it's an obstacle to liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. What needs to be done? I need to actually purify this negativity. I need to not react in this situation. I need to use this situation and to create cause for liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. And that it's important for us to really, develop the habitual response to everything that occurs in this kind of light. That it's an immediate reminder that this is the mind training aspect of putting these kind of thoughts into action. That it's an immediate reminder when the obstacle is met, when we have suffering or something is kind of like an undesirable that arises for us. That immediately we connect it to a negative cause that I created. Therefore, that negative cause must not be created again. I must be absolutely clear that I must not engage in anything like that again, because I know the path of that kind of karma. And so there's this immediate kind of very strong eradication of so much negativity because of the reminder that you give yourself through that process. And similarly, for something positive that happens, you have a happiness that arises, you immediately connect that with a positive, virtuous cause that you created. And that's something that, again, you just as powerfully want to remind yourself that when that moment of happiness arises, you recognize it as happiness. Oh, great, this is beautiful happiness. But it's also a happiness of just cyclic existence, I want to upgrade that happiness into a happiness of liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. And you immediately remind yourself of that through the mind training. And that therefore you can immediately turn your mind from that, beautiful feeling of joy and happiness into creating a much more powerful cause for happiness as well. And in this way, once you have developed the habit in this way, of dealing with all the minuses and the pluses of life in that way, and then you're going to have a very satisfied mind state.
What is it? Takaje, Sosuke, Mizinala, Tedu, Kalesu Chua Yimba Yine, Dillet, and Landela Ijiche, and Dilatene, and Tabata Tamche Kembege, and Jutubieke, and Kumachich. Kumasanata, Jutuburdas, Jutubiela, Ota, Chicasole. Message down was such. What are the message down was such? The nature water but Jenny. Shimbaina, and it did kind of try in Negapchilata, Kibuta, Tunga Soja, Yungu Yorte, Dilatene, and a Pugi, and a Digila Manuechi, and a Pugi, and think it Digi to Rege, Twinget was on Gunet, think it Digi to Rege, Twingela Trot Watcher, young to Ege, Marazo, me, Namjutona, Yoitua. That mean Namju de Derege Mewa in some of the town to Marwa.
And so what we need to conclude is that this life that we have, and more specifically, this human intelligence that we have, ought to be used in this way. And that, we have the presentation of the law of cause and effect. and our faith and belief in the law of cause and effect is to be able to really exhort us into always making these correct decisions, and that we may experience these as temporary. These are just temporary incidences, but what we are more interested in is the long-term future, that we are kind of being able to transform these instances into. Therefore, if it's a suffering that's arising, there's no way that we are allowing that to harm our future, and that we are seeing it as the direct law of cause and effect connection to a negative cause that must be at all costs avoided from now on. And even in the happiness that we are experiencing temporarily, in that we are able to see how that can be beneficial to our future by upgrading that happiness into a cause of liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, and repeating those causes as much as we can.
Tene imasa nega ge digi da dunga gede shuwa yina ya tengi digi ti an tungela droache gegela mondroache gechembore da di yoela so se samlo tangda la rale ge dwa samlo tangda de muyu ge nechi tumba samlo tang ma tang shin da ma shi rale de ge dwa.
And so therefore all temporary suffering, all temporary happiness can be transformed into the causes of liberation and enlightenment, therefore the future happiness and future avoidance of suffering. And so it's really this all depends on our thinking, nothing else. This is the way we are able to approach all of these instances that occur. This is what can really ensure the transformation of each moment into something far more precious and valuable.
Tene imasa diring de ra tanda wate YouTube duzure jebu long chebe duzu mare tanda wate YouTube duzure mao bate jebu long chebe duzure ani mao be jebu lo mano wa chede tande ngozu lengere.
And so today is a day for the accumulation of causes. It's not the day to really enjoy results of the fruition of those causes. Today and now, this life is the time for the accumulation of causes. We must be unmistaken in this regard, and therefore we must dedicate ourselves in this way. Diring de table launch we do the investor and Tata Majon Maki Bajan Tabana so the Gongarago. Oh, Tata YouTube Ludan Na Yi Kangake YouTube college of the Redua. College of season Redua Tantati. This season de so sona and season de Kala Kari YouTube to an Dilababa table young Tigua. And so therefore it's not the time for the accumulation of the enjoyment of causes, or results. I mean, that this is the season of causes, to be using body, speech, and mind to accumulate the cause, because this is the season for being able to harvest those causes as much as we can. And once the season of causes is finished, then the time comes for the results that can be enjoyed.
Then also debut captain and Casada Duju and Manoa Che the Care Chimbore. Duju Norsona and the debut put up was to Marwa. Then they was Tanda Gu Cabra, Gu Kalanga, Kalajabe to say, and Tiki Gu to be to the Tiki Yukata Resha, and the Manoa took to edge. And it Casada Manoa, Gorim Machoa, Shasa was to be a lot of Pesuchigutua.
So therefore, to be absolutely clear that this is the season for causes and not the season to enjoy results. And we must be unmistaken in this regard, that now I can really dedicate myself to being able to accumulate the full set of causes and make the effort. This is the time for effort. This is the time to strive to really accumulate those causes. And again, I'll be, unmistaken in the way I approach this. I will do so in the correct order, and I will accumulate the full set of causes necessary so that the full result can be enjoyed.
어디래? 먼저 다다 신박을 조단을 찍바로와 신박이 뒤쪽에 아니 뒤줄을 밥에 사고에 뒤줄을 밥에 아니 사변 답에 뒤줄을 밥에 코라라 다 지금 류다 파들라서다 가리 잡고는 자에 아니 뒤줄을 밥에 가 출루에 아니 저다 되게 찾아지 런소나 아니 그 개념 가르는서 개념 되게 셋업 제바 있나 아니 그 지금 대부분 멤버 땡게 뒤줄라 아니 대부분 비다 보지 라도 레요 다 뒤에 찍고 지자로 와 진짜 찍고 지자래 다다 어저 타마다 담대 정말 유튜브에 되죠라 유튜브에 되죠 인데 아니 주 그래서 두고도 아니 만어 주 가리가리에서 뭐 쳐봤지 아니 주디 다 가자데 되게라서 차사와 거리 맞춰와 다디가 차상한테 중앙이나 아니 대부 비다고 연구를 와 비다 다른 거 저기 아니 잡서 저자게 아니 저기 가서라다 간자제 상계 좀 된다 아니 저기 제를 뭐자 라서와 기부 담바 추게 와다 나를 러발람게 내가서 굴레 잡네 다다 제벌을 런처네 아니 타이베 막은 심제 탐자라 답에 니마 샤와네시 편도 제 두고도
And so it's like the farmer, and indeed, it's identical to the way the farmer plans for harvest. That first of all, there's the preparation of the soil, the tilling, and so on, and then the procurement of good quality seed, the sowing of the seed, and then there's the adding of the fertilizer, the water, etc. With good fortune, then you have suitable weather conditions. And it's only by really accumulating the full set of causes, applying them all in the right order and in a non-mistaken way, that the farmer then can look forward to a really bountiful harvest. And it's very similar and very to our laying down the causes for liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. And that, we again understand that we are doing so in the correct order. We are accumulating the complete set of causes. We are collecting unmistaken causes, and in that way, we can really hope for the perfect harvest of positive results. And that's very, very important that we can see, and just in that way, that the great beings of the past, the Buddha, Rinpoche, and so on, having gone through the process in exactly the same way, have become, for now, like the incredible rising sun of benefit for everyone.
what did you want to do? What did it? Roa pena 지금 신바 지금 신뢰 제대 맞제바체 아니 제랑 같은 또 작으면도 나라 지 신가께 맞서 남리 께 잡아는 미팅 오코 탕당면도 라기로 와. 신바데 탕당면도 라기라면도 그 등문에를 라기 말 모두 디다고 들어제. 디기 좀 맞아와제 디기 뭐도 께 잡네. 아니 대디가 여봐. 다들 너 되게 도와다 그 준대가 도다 치 근데 도다 남이 준대 도 찍고 치잖아. 도다 찍고 치잖아. 저단 내가 요 말에 저단 찍고 지잖아. 거기 가서는 벌써 내저 로를 봐. 그 샤바가 산재고 써요. 말에 수강 써요. 말 지금 제법을 써요. 말 그 내저 로래. 다티 거기도나 디다 투베 줄라고 그래. 디다 투베 주말라는 디 연구요 말에. 그 내저 로래.
And so, conversely speaking, if the farmer does not engage in that kind of process, is not really in any way, following the right order of causes, the complete causes, and so on, and then starts complaining because they don't have much of a harvest whatsoever. I mean, his fellow farmers will point to him and talk behind his back, saying he really isn't right in the head. It's true, isn't it? Like, the farmer doesn't do the necessary preparation, and then they complain that they don't have a decent harvest. You have to go, there's something wrong there. They're kind of like really missing something. And we should have the same attitude to somebody who complains all the time that they're unhappy and that they kind of like something wrong in the head. How can you be if you haven't accumulated the causes for happiness? It's exactly the same scenario, and that really. it's not something that's made up. It's a natural law. You know, if the causes are accumulated, then you will experience that result. If they're not accumulated, you can't complain that the result is not being experienced. You must accumulate the causes if you want to experience the result.
어때요? 다들 내 말에 되게 그 된대 그 조단 뭐요 조단 되게 산재 그 소요 말에 수강 소요 말에 콘트 그래서 그 조단 당하라 그 가서 뭐비 내주서 그래 가서 다我다 내줘 로스를 가서 다 조단 뒤면도 조단 니바지 요 말에 다 조단 니바지 매매도 아니 뒤다 투바다 제부들에 저거는 뒤다 투바 제거해서 가서 수인에 들어왔다 최케 레말에 요 말에 되게 되게 저 뒤다 투바 저거도 그 조단으로 왔다 조단에도 와我大体的，但是商业中的这个的商业起码影响，俺那那种蒙白我给新个要嘛吧，俺那蓝的哪儿吧，蓝的哪儿不是商业什么嘛的，蓝的哪儿的，伢用个点的。
And so this is, you know, the actuality of things. This is the way things are. It's not something that the Buddha made up or we made up or anything else. It's just the way things are. This is the actuality of things. You know, there's no second kind of like a way. And that's you know, it's not a question of whether you accept the spiritual path or not. You know, the happiness and suffering of life is not dependent upon anything like that. It's just the natural way things are. If the causes are accumulated, and then the result will be experienced. If the causes are not accumulated, then that experience cannot be expected to occur. And so it's kind of like the Buddha didn't make this up, but he understood this process, and he simply showed the path. He pointed it out and showed how it was the actuality of life. Shokchang gyatang chukchuranga nibadi sonba bangwa lasum.
Zoba bangwa lasum sum. Order song kaptı da şu sana order. Da. Da. Ni ba zoba bangla song sa. Ane xian ran la 偏见的밑에 봐帮我在先让了偏见的밑에 봐帮我这那让先了那把阶段可是让先了那阶段밑에 봐帮我偏拖这了萝卜就把搞把我这我大概在上就送这
And so and in looking towards the text, we had arrived at a second outline. And the second outline was the dispelling of objection or objections, and there are three subheadings dealing with this point. And the first is to drop the idea that others are not benefiting us. The second is to drop the ideas that we are not harming others, and thirdly, that refuting the notion that that the benefit that is occurring is somehow mistaken.
편제도 그래서 밑에 봐 방와 될라 그래서 개대 달라 삼바이 연대 연한 얄미 줬어.
And so the first of these, the kind of dropping the idea that the other is not benefiting me. Verse number 50, the first half of that verse reads, if my mind has the noble quality of patience, I shall not go to hell.
다 개대 달라서 소소라 뇌제 대다기 내다 팬다 냐베 삼바유나 소소라 팬다 냐베 삼바유 소소라 팬도도 삼바유나 아니 디 연대게 다 될라데네 아니 서바 검토 정도도 서바유나 다 냐와 미조싱 냐와 정보다 아니 냐와 뭐저 인바 인자 아니 딕바다과 주스 딕바디 용금도 와 Suba Mogome Tipa Yumunda, and Dundana, Nujeta Dala Penjo. That the day in by Yeza, Nujetic social panto chagi to us. Casada, Nujetic social panto, a summer your mother could never kill some of your day. Yinaya, social good social panto do some jenny, and the Seveg you to go to summer star yina, and the social Yawa Mindo Atan, and the Dipa to get the car to go to one. The day in Baza, social. You dona nuje data la tala pendo jo tende imbaza nuje di social pendo wa chagi to us which.
And so this means that when we are able to respond to harm by really transforming it into benefit, because we are able to access the beneficial mind of patience, and then we will not go to the hell realms. We will have a purified negativity. And so even though the one who is harming us hasn't got the thought to benefit, yet because of our control and our ability to access patience, we are turning that into a beneficial scenario. And that therefore it's the case that they are actually benefiting us.
What the conjecture 소소게 다 저거서 세베 냠len 제 두건지 임바이나 세베 냠len 냠len게 연대되게 통화 임바이나 아니 된데그 소소로 내 계겐데 아니 코라도 녀바사가 열봐 코라 몽베 온게 지금 열봤다 몽베 온게 아니 라라 녀바 끼게 열때 몽베 온게 녀바 끼때 몽베게 다 동해 유튜브로 코라라 동해 유튜브로 왔다 동해 유튜브로 와 동해 유튜브도 다 가자 가서 저거 동해 유튜브도 다 딕바스인데 딕바스가 랑 팡바치게 들어와 다 코란 딕바 사고요도 다 코란을 팡바치 코란을 다 가자 동해 유튜브도 용되기도 와 다 근데 이제 아니 제가 꿀롱을 돌아도 코란게 뭐저 펜타고 삼사 요 말이 때 내밖에고 삼사 요할 때 이나야 곧 녀목의 상황도 제대로 다 녀목이다 녀목스기도 그 라지 니가를 내가 지금 지마 인도 아니 다 이래서 서바 공개시간에 때는 아니 코라 그 소소 서바 검토바 인바 인사 아니 소소라 펜토 되기도 와 펜토 되도 아니 코라 르 당전다 코라 동네 존에 녀종을 깨봐 이네 깨 코알라 무트를 내와네 개면도 아니 문도 삼자 아니 소소라 서바 검에게 아니 튕게 좀 받이 차되기도 와 안데 데레 맞아 다디 수고 열봐
And so when we can engage in the practice of patience in the face of harm like this, it's not like the other is kind of like in there. We have to understand that they are under the influence of ignorance. They're kind of under the influence of their mental affliction, and they're really accumulating the causes of suffering. And so that that's kind of meaning of the negativity in that sense. It's that defeat that one is kind of like really lost under the influence of mental affliction. And even though we have no motivation to harm them in that particular case, yet harm accrues for them because they are certainly accumulating the causes for that. And so it's kind of like really understanding there, patience is something that is kind of designed for us to help us. In this particular case, they are still kind of wandering in the kind of great, how do you say, the loss of being in cyclic existence and accumulating the causes for suffering to maintain that status in cyclic existence.
어더다 다 간제 다 피네 상부인에다 년바인에다 피기디 아니 소소라 너바 계게 인바네 팬토가 인바이나다 아니 소소라 팬토다 너게데 소소 삼로 당당라 달레데기도 와 그러와 피게 팬토가 삼사이네 소소 삼로 당당디 아니 녀몽을 잘라 당와이나 피게 팬토에 꿀론 요래 코나 개와 두고 요래때 이네 소소 삼로 땅땅고 엄게 동네 랑을 동네 교용한테 연구도 와 동네 교용한테 연구도 와다 파줘야 꿀론 몇바째고 삼사 연바 이네 소소 삼로 땅땅고 돈에 아니 취다 좀 삼로 땅이나 아니 디 녀모 개교 잡라 아니 지금 잠바데 니제 계라서다 수배 냠내 용해 되게도 용어 되게도 근데 이번 인사 그새 쉬이 뭐 녀몽고 규들라 숨 요레스 녀몽고 바차 아니 녀몽게 워스콜 코유 아니 되네 아니 취시도 삼로 마당와 딱 이제 소소로 녀몽 깨다 맞아 취시도 삼로 땅 신다 마셔 라래 되게도 취시도 삼로 땅 마신 바이나 녀몽 깨에 동에 규두에 취시도 삼로 땅 와이나 아니 디 가서 데 추다 좀 삼로 땅와이나 디 가서 녀모마게 아니 디기 규주에 지 용어 되기도 다디 파조게 지근들라 라레기 뭐도 소소가 삼로 땅땅땅 아니 원래 제단들라 라레 되기도
So whether good or bad is occurring, whether that brings benefit or harm to us is completely down to our own mental attitude, our thinking with regard to that. And that here it's kind of like, one has the from the kind of motivation to kind of engage in benefits, the motivation to create harm. That's again down to the individual and their thinking. And so that, from this particular scenario where you are choosing patience, the other is choosing to harm, they are very much creating the causes of suffering in their own minds. And so instead, from your point of view, your responsibility is to bring forth loving kindness and compassion in that scenario. And that to kind of like really understand that, the conditions for the flourishing of mental affliction include the imprints on the mind, the environment that one is in, and most of all, incorrect thinking that is brought to the situation. And so this is something that we can fall back on to understand, really, that we must bring a perfect kind of thinking to each situation, and to be able to say, instead of it becoming a negative here, instead of my falling under the defeat of the influence of mental affliction and accumulating the causes of suffering, I am going to employ the perfect thinking in this regard to center on and focus on the causes of happiness.
참참 미지여 저 용거리다 인데 우저도 안 코란닝제 저거 삼로 또 셈게 강에 유되게 제 아니 슝내무라기도 컨트롤 슝내로 빠지고 살아 셈게 삼로가 강에 유되게 가서다 셈게 강에 유되게 아니 슝이 무라기도 안 코란 섬자 저와들레 용거 저와들레 용 어때죠 아니 코 슝응의들 랭게 요때 얘네 코 무고고 요때 얘네 서바기고 요 말이야 먼저라 때 룩다운 전 되게 요레스 먼저 때 투고 요 말이 저거 요 말 삼 야고 당신 거 요 말은 안 가서 룩다운 전 되게 코 무고고 요 무리게 요때 얘네 무레바데 코라 서바기고 요 말에 어때 어떻게 삼로 당다 라레다 그래서 슝진 쳐버려 슝 빼야버려 아니 미망이 텍스 빼야잖 아니 먼저라 지금 내가 시험 하도 왜 이런 것들을 슝고 로바지 그래 빼야버려서 삼로 당사지 요와 얘네 대 삼로 삼점 땅 마도 받잖아 엔디 셈마기 받잖아 되기도 안되는 용도 가서 파조를 알리고면다 소소 삼로 당당 전에 아니 문제로 로바지거다 로바디 야sem마기 받아야 되지 용되기도 그 삼로 당당했잖아 로하다 그딱 디자 펜토나 내게 봐이나 아니 소소 저 가서데 저거 추다 또 삼로 당신나 마신라 때는 용무께다 마기 알려 되기도 디바사다 마사다 알려 되기도
And so I remember an example of this is where in Bendigo, when I was there, I was to meet with a certain individual who had kind of mental issues, and he was receiving a disability pension from the government, and from time to time he would come for interview. But in the interview, he would constantly complain about the government, saying how they completely, looked down on him and his disability and disrespected and so on. And he had like this litany of complaints against the government. And yet he was happy enough to take the disability pension from the government. And so it was a case for me, of the incorrect thinking brought to the situation, and that there was the possibility of another way of looking at it from his point of view, that you had the kindness of those who were paying their taxes to the government, and from that fund of taxes the government had chosen to help those in need like yourself, to kind of like be of some benefit, to help you out. And yet he didn't consider that to be the valid way of looking at it, but a constant state of criticism towards the government was his chosen way of thinking about it, and therefore exacerbating his difficulties. So it was a case of really saying, it's down to your thinking as to what is occurring to you, whether it is something that is kind of beneficial or not.
Sudah tu batang oh ta petin cember misuk text anu ngazul robacer ngazul legasira lemoja anu soala kangai meba sogudo ota pe ya boleh san kau kami Google je dua anu dilatena ta chui kelengena mani ta dilango aje ta ci 용구로 왔다 가제 지 용구로 왔다 가제 가이나 메나 그 삼로 당시 마신 게 돈에 용 되기도 근데 인바 인자 그 추다 투바 삼로 당나 녀바 개바디에 팬 도와서요 추다 투바 삼로 마당이나 팬 도바디에 아니 녀바 가서 됐다 가서 팬 도바디에 라라 녀베 교조에 다 녀몽게도 할 때는 디바사기도 아니 라라 녀베 교차기도 왔다 가제 디 라라 라레고도 마다 파줘들 자제 자타바 라려와 저리면도 녀다 많이 쓰겠대. 당고전 녀다 많이 써 예치주다 타바 탐제기 김에 줄라 저거도 저거도 따고다. 디 예치주다 단단 가서 봐봐디. 먼저 싸게 주주에 치도 시가 열와.
And so there's a totally different kind of attitude that could be employed by that individual to really consider the people who make these decisions to grant disability pensions and so on as being extremely kind, that the hardworking people of Australia paying their taxes so that this could be possible, that there's every reason for him to be more happy that they didn't have to work, and yet they were able to get money. And so this is all the kind of options that they could have had, but they choose the more kind of harmful thinking that kept them in a state of miserable criticism. And so it's kind of very important that we are able to not fall into such traps ourselves, that we are able to kind of really see what is the most beneficial way of greeting everything that occurs for us, to kind of really and basically, ask the question that, again, from the very beginning, we were talking about, is my choice of action here something that is going to facilitate my journey towards liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment, or is it creating another obstacle to attaining liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment? Because after all, this is a text which is centered on the big picture, and so therefore, we have to watch the way in which our mental attitude responds to all of these different situations. So that we can really dedicate ourselves to causes towards liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. The second of those outlines was again dropping the idea that we are not harming others. And the second half of verse number 50 states, "But although I am protecting myself in this way, how will it be so for them?
Water. That get it, that get nugget that social nobody can nugget that super comneta, super combe, and the condition one the module so to a ten combe, and Darani dipala sunguto, a social dipala sunguto. Suaina, Suaina, this nugget detala, detala, this son of Chichi, nugget detala son of Casio, Chichi Junte, Michum Shabo.
And so, this verse then is talking about then, if you know, I am able to respond with patience to the harm of the other, then I will be protected from negativity. Will not have to kind of go that way. But from their point of view, from the one who is harming, they are not in any way accumulating any kind of merit.
어떤 정도 어떤다 어떤 다들 다들 이마 있어 좀 되게 다니다기 고양이 다니다기 자연 스타트 차기도 지금 소소게 아니 지금 가서데 네마니어서 소소 녀몽의 상황도 좀 맞으래도 소소 녀몽도 상황도 좀 라니라 되고도 라 녀몽의 상황도 맞으죠 녀몽 뒤에 된게라 자토와 되나니 아니 라니 고양 차기도 다들 이마 있어 아니 소소 구유게 내주데 시베토네 컨디션은 녀몽 깨기도 컨디션은 깨기면도 대시베토네 아니 디 가서데 디다 투바 아니 룽아 예수의 자와데 도고도 안 디체토와이나 라니 고연주도 다디 많이 맞잖아 아니 추다 미디베 삼로탄네 다 근데 중앙에 야고 있는 독자저 가르 중앙에 있는 추다 미디베 삼로탄와 있나네 아니 녀모께 녀모 샤와도 주네 아니 다니다기 다스게 차도다 다 다스도 소소 내게는 진짜 다스게 열와 아니 소소 내게 되기도
And this goes back to exactly what the Buddha has spoken. You know, we are our own protector, we are our own enemy, and simply referring to the fact that if we are under the influence of mental affliction or not, so when we are you know, able to see the actuality of any given situation, we are really protecting ourselves from falling under the influence of the mental affliction. They were protected, you know, in body, speech, and mind in situations like that. You know, whereas if we kind of react to situations and we allow the mental afflictions to take control, and we simply become our own enemy in that situation.
어디래도 다들 염소 아니 다 소소게 서바 겁네 아니 소소 녀모 맞게 봐 소토와래 아니 디발에 잡토와래 오다 소소 케베데 렌토도와 이내야 딱 그래서 레미제와 미테와 제와 취미사와서 소소소 레사와데 데부뇽데 왜서 가사 셴바티 내가 기근데 아니 코kulong게 내가 깨고서 코 디바사면서 코 겨어드베스게 미도와 이제 다들서 레미제바다 미테와 제와 취미사와서 소소 그게 내가 깨고도 소소게 서바 검토와 이서 깨와 좀 두고도 다 파줘 되게 파줘라 내가 깨와 인바 인자 나라들한테 뭐네다 그 서바 좀에게 튕게 잡아낼 때 코랑이 꿀어 뭐네 서바 검에쳐도 제와 멤버 인자 안 코디바사기도 용거도 다그 소소 레미제바다 미테와 제와 취미사와서도 다 소소 레 가르사나 디다 좀 대부용한테 정도도
And so in this particular situation, you know, because we have chosen patience as our way of approaching the situation, and we are protected from negativity. And that, you know, this, whatever side of this situation we are on, we are all have to abide by the principles of karma, and that we do not meet with results if we haven't accumulated the cause, and that cause will not disappear of its own accord. And so here, if the other, that one who is engaging in harm, is kind of motivated by harm, and is kind of like motivated by mental affliction, is accumulating negativities, they are not protected. They are not protected in that situation. And so they're, because they are not motivated to choose patience, they will accumulate negativity, and there too will have to abide by the two principles of karma as outlined.
나도 답변은 너밖에 얘기인데 너밖에 코로나 팬토에서도 얘기해요. 이네 팬토에 유튜브다 마시 맞잖아. 동네 유튜브 도도. 너밖에 코로나 팬토에서도 봐줘도 너밖에 얘기해요. 얘다. 코로나 너밖에 지금 팬토에서도 얘기해요. 이네 몽배 온게. 아니 코로나 팬토에 중고 마시 뭐 오니 아니 유 노래 온게 아니 팬토 유살아 코로나 동네 유튜브 되기도.
So you have this curious situation where the one who was harming has brought benefit to the situation, but from their point of view, they have accumulated causes for suffering. And so this shows the tragedy of ignorance, that they're ignorant as to what the causes of benefit are in a situation like that.
지금 소속의 디기에서 속을 열때 디기 연결자를 동에 용되게 열받아 몽바스들이다.
The mongba is kind of a sense of cloudy confusion and ignorance, kind of you're thinking that you're after happiness, where you're only accumulating actually the causes for suffering.
그러나 차샤바는 냐심게 속에 딜라직 따기도 와. 냐고고 땅에 직따기도 와. 냐디게 오 사주 양고도서 이제 연구 열받아. 근데 이게 코라 소셜도 와. 그러다 또 뭔가 온 거로 와. 그 동에 연구 한국어이나 그거 땅에 와 한국어 조금 말아.
So it's like fishing, when the fish kind of like is swimming around and finally sees something delicious to eat, and it's kind of like
맞다. 냐심게 인데전다 냐 인데저 칼라도 연구라 이제 냐심게 자주 유거로 와. 자주를 직 다샤도 와. 냐그서 바디 칼라레 저거로 이제 냐 칼라레잖아요. 사가요도 아니 코랑 소주고 열와.
Yeah, so it's like that. So the fish thinks, yeah, this is delicious food, and goes to get the food, not realizing that it's actually attached to a hook, and therefore they are kind of basically killing themselves because of something, going for what they think is happiness, but ending up as giving up their life. That's ignorance. That's that ignorance.
나라서 코아나로 코도에 다가르다. 나라서 디기리샤서 고콘데. 아니 디 짜줄라 되는 것도 못해도 내 되거다.
So we have to see ourselves as like wandering in the great sea of ocean of cyclic existence, going around looking for happiness, and really thinking that, you know, oh, this will give us happiness, and going for it, not realizing that it's a hook, another hook that is going to be the hook of negativity.
그래서 배는 것도 코아나로 인데 코네 아니 주에 동에데 아니 디기를 뭐 진짜는 아니 배 미식인가 배는 것도 돌아다 강바다 모다들 고고데 이네 가서도 랑 니바 용자 디고를 다 들라 고코네 주에 동에들 고코네 아니 최지야 용금은 또 아니 그다 그거 고코네 타마 들라다 미미지데다 딘데지라 고코네 다 간자 가서 몽배 온게 들라 고코잖아요 무트네 다 코안에 타예가 루덴 야고신 예버데 디 구갑드 스마도 자 아니 못는다 저아리 두고 내민다고 먹고 절 이게도도 어때레스레다 데레스 디 몽배 온 거로 뭐 여기 내지 마시 맞죠 몽배 온게.
And so this kind of like a constant sort of like wandering around like we are with this kind of ignorance, kind of clouding our mind, that you know, and for us we're chasing after what is basically the suffering of change. Thinking that, oh, this is something that will bring happiness, you know, whether it's money or whether it's house, whether it's a position, and just kind of really wandering around blindly, aimlessly like that, you know, chasing after ephemeral happiness that is just simply the suffering of change, is kind of the lot for so many of us. And that, you know, this is kind of how we move around the 6 realms of existence like that. All kind of like again clouded by this ignorance, making a very, very unwise choices. So that's you know, the winds of karma then blowing us from the peak of cyclic existence down to the hell without respite and everywhere in between. This has been our lot, really, in cyclic existence.
The single matter in the round.
And so it's like the leaves on a tree. They have to obey the wind. Whichever way the wind is blowing, that's the direction they will fall in and blow in. And so we are like that too. The winds of karma are blowing us back and forth like that. And so therefore, we have this human life, we have this precious human life, and we must really grasp that opportunity with both hands. Because if we don't, then what are the prospects for us? So that if we lose that opportunity of this precious life that we have, that one time when we kind of like breathe out, we won't breathe in again. That means, that's the end of this particular episode, and where we go next, then we have no telling. And you look at the causes that are leading, that must be there, to kind of like lead to a precious human rebirth. It's kind of like, or just a human rebirth, I think, is that you have to have perfect ethical conduct. You have to have experience of generosity and the other perfections. You have to have kind of perfectly directed aspirational kind of thoughts to attain such a life. And that's a lot to get together, and you can see how difficult it is to even have a human life. You can realize how difficult that is when you try to really pay attention to even engaging in maintaining perfect ethical conduct even for one day. You can realize how difficult it is to accumulate that cause, and that you can be absolutely sure that without the causes accumulated, the results will never and cannot be enjoyed.
So now, now
that we actually have that particular result, it's really absolutely definite that we must make the absolute most of it. It's no use sitting back and praying that you will have such a great opportunity again in the future life. That's not going to work. You actually have to establish the causes.
So
if you actually really make use of this opportunity now and lay down the causes, then even if you pray not to have this human life in the future, it will still come about. That's the way the law of cause and effect works. And so if you have this precious human rebirth and you make use of it to its utmost in the right way, and then again, if you even pray, may I not have a future rebirth like this, then even if you insist that that is the case, it will still occur because you have laid down the causes for it to happen. So the power is not in the result, the power is in the cause.
Yeah, okay. Then that the name is that you can't to get can't to get that beju yabutan to how don't do that because chuta to samlotaya. Pajo the yaga duga kaya keva yoba rang samlotaya nyomungi shangwado manwa nyomungi tunge the manto tachi education but nyomungi tunge la chiba ina pajo pantowa ina no keva ina that niga chiba rangi nyomongi lukaso tunge majaja nyomongi kekela towa jeba ina wata pajo pentowa ina nyo keba nika chikwa jiyara pentowa chadukudwa.
And so that again, it really boils down to the way we think, what is the thinking that we bring to any situation that's occurring out there. It's extremely important to be able to rely upon our own response, our own thinking response, and to ensure that first and foremost, that it is in no way tainted by mental affliction, let alone falling under the influence of mental affliction. And if we can maintain kind of a virtuous outlook in our thinking, and then there's kind of every possibility that it can be helpful to both situations, to, in every situation for us.
Nyomol habde chadreda ra nyomo kegu to jemon ra ngoto bache ngoto on ani nyomo ma ke basoye dara do dara da cheche se do ro da nyomo ge twingela mando bache nyomo gejen la to che samlo ta ani du jun rang semla lunga yesum dal chaba cha hakdo do sem de la chaba chen semla so ta ne de ro la kata ba lama zo so ye nga shiba lega kemes ko 가지고도 다 코트나 나트 콜로나 갈려 쓰는 시전 뭐다 딜레테네 대면도 시부시부지 출로네 지금 최지구에 시부시부지 뒤철로 저거 유매대 대소를 해도 와 디고 난게 삼로 당달라 때네 최 녀몽을 튕겨를 저거도 개견로 개제 칭대부 시바이네 디 녀몽을 튕겨로 또 개견로도 상 삼로 당달라 할래 돼도 와 그러와 다 랑게 삼로 당당게 토네 아니 고치게 녀목이 개견을 줘야 튕겨를 잡아줘 왔지 녀목을 카드 자를 잡도나 아니 지금 저저대 다 되레도 왔다 개치 난 삼로 다이더라도 왔다 되게 나라도 리바 팀체네 디자바 이난 아니 취해서도 소설 락반날 누가 줄로 랄리기면 더 소설 락반날 취쳐도 더 먼저 소설 락발 누가 디 가서데 remote control de social 락발 누가 remote control 생겨 락발 민두가
And so in many ways, Dharma, the practice of Dharma is very simple, really, isn't it? When it's described as simply preventing the arising of mental affliction, it can be, very straightforward. And so, therefore, we simply extrapolate upon that to say that we must never in any way promote conducive conditions for mental affliction. We must also starve the conditions that might promote the mental affliction. And so it's kind of very, very, simple in that way. Like the great Kadampa masters used to point out that, in terms of mental affliction, that when the mind is very tight like that, I'll be on guard with the spear of my mindfulness. When the mind is relaxed, I will relax. And so it's kind of like really, it's kind of one simple job that we have to do, and that there's kind of no the more we can how do you say, purify it of doubt and of kind of like second guessing, I think that's the better way we have, the more kind of skillful thinking we have to it, because we must kind of be proactive in opposing mental afflictions, and certainly at the outset, and realize that the most important kind of like friend that we have in this regard is our own inner thinking. And it's really, that's all it depends on. What is the attitude we're bringing into that situation? It's not something external to us that really is determining what there's no relationship to how easily we fall under the influence of mental affliction. It's really how we conclude ourselves based on our own inner thinking. And so it's kind of saying, that really, it's more than ever saying that your life, every moment of your life, every response you have to whatever is occurring is in your own hands, It's like, you know, the remote is nothing, and nobody else has the remote. You have the remote in your hands, and so therefore you can choose what channel is going to be most beneficial.
There is a remote control the Shamba Labala Shajawa, remote control the social level YouTube channel. Pacho Karishana, Soso Giti, Lemity, Casode, Casode, Takaja, Casode, Tanda. Yomo Gemajueta, and Yomo Shanwan to Majuti, Rang Ngotobachene. Ngotobachene, and it is Shanwan Majuba Tapsi Chene, and it took Sobala Sobakadim and Yamletic Tata let to bachet. Let to bachet. What I catch about it. Maybe protein? Protein? I think so, yeah. Huh? Last one? Yeah. No problem. Yeah. The timing was up. Okay. Hello? Yeah. Oh, hello. Nola. Hello. 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 Good. Oh, yeah, coming. Yeah. Hello. No. Hello.
Hello again,
Last. Oh, yeah. I didn't charge Mare. Yeah. Hello. Yeah, still gone. Yeah. Gone. Yeah. Hello. Hello. Oh, yeah.
I think it's going over here.
Hello. Hello. Oh, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Nola. Oh, yeah. Internet was Kento.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And the little Shashana. Yeah. Okay.
And so we'll leave it there for today.
Yeah, that the Rangatuna set of Lama to be on Butilla, set up Josh, Lama to be on set up Josh up, and the Nea Casore. That's a consultory to Kawaki in there, and then Tungel and Midawach. How do you do any better? Tungal to Chaba to Jig, Tungal and Matawach, the Chaba to Jell, Tungal, Tawaja Ibainata, and it's when it tend to dig the town in the Mabby, but water, then they call and give us in George Kumbashe. Then they gave a lot and a rangichu Pematabjela Juso, some such. 아니 지나가 초근데 유된 좀 두자 요마리에서 코다 줘봐 공부 가자 가점치 아니 딩예벨로데 아니 랑게 지워 안데 빼마답게 그 땡도 님의 경우 약화 주소서 다 최담제 유된 좀 두자 매바 임자 다 때내 중하면서 조사 요마리 때내 중하면서 조사 매뜨뜨 아니 오다 지금 년종 장세 양다바 다와라 소바 사주 람가라 소바 되게 라와이나 오라 산제 고바스도 톱주도다 태소면도 교회도 대부분이 타치 말이야. 근데 이마자 산제 고마마도 타면도 산 두바지기 삼사제 고마지시 아니 근데 두바티 다외기 뭐냐 강아지 줘서 선생 반대절 라마를 뭐지 다게 지워면 그래서 구소도 공부도 자도서 선대 좀 담배 가서 니베 가서 수배 때도 쉬는 산제 고마마도 제송소 손을 가고
And so let's bring our mind to focus on the Guru Manindra Shakyamuni Buddha as the merit field in front of us, that we are preparing our own body and mind to invite the Guru Buddha to our pre-prepared seat on our own crown. And we establish this by reflecting first on renunciation, thinking how that all of the 6 realms of cyclic existence are really marked by suffering, and indeed they are in the nature of suffering because they do not get beyond the suffering. Even like when we look at pervasive suffering, because of that we can have no hope within this reality to experience a definite happiness, and therefore we really want to gain the sense of definite emergence from cyclic existence and attain liberation. That is symbolized by the lotus mandala seat. And then reflecting on how inner and outer phenomena lack any objective existence. They're merely imputed, and reaching that point of the mere negation of the object of negation, producing the sun disk mandala. And from that basis then of really understanding how no phenomena can be independent, but all are therefore dependent entities. They arise in dependence, and that means that we can really develop all of the causes that will lead to that state of enlightenment, and that we can develop perfect renunciation, the correct view of emptiness and the mind of enlightenment itself, proceed along the paths and grounds and so on, developing all of the causes. And once the causes are accumulated, then the results have no choice but to manifest, to ripen. And so therefore we dedicate ourselves to attaining the mind of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. And that is symbolized by the moon mandala disc. And we utter the invocation verse thrice. So glorious and precious root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here at my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first recitation, the figure of the Guru Buddha moves from the space in front. At the end of the second, arrives at our pre-prepared seat. And at the end of the third, we have the certainty that the Buddha will remain with us until we attain the state of enlightenment, and we rejoice in that fact. And so, in rejoicing, then we make the offerings of the 7 limbs of practice and the mandala offering, and not just in the sense of just repeating the words and paying lip service, but actually really reflecting on the meaning of what this is about in order to, accumulate the necessary merit that we need and to purify the obstacle of negativities from our mind stream.
아니 되네 다 양조 년종 공부시 감수 좋아지로 가밖에 왔네 다 지금 생리 참여 때 완전 싸워지는 민도 선 공부시네 아니 내가 저 년주 공부시 되네서 되네 그 로디 아니 가서 랑닝이 그때 빼마다 제치를 주소서 지난 거 근데 유된 저 두상 용어서 코다 저 공부시 되네 가서 간삼들 셈 샤잖네 아니 되네 예별 로디 랑이 그래서 다 닝배마 답제도 님의 뭐냐 가지고서 다 심지어 탐제거도 산제 공원 요원이도 맞던데 지금에도 요원이도 토바 지금 삼사제 공부에 시네 아니 데데그 dum바데 다베지 뭐냐 가지고 받아서 라마르 다기니가 그래 구소도 좀 무저 짜도서 소대자 담배 가서 님에 가서 수배 가서 때르셔는 산제 공부마도 그 봐도 제소소소 삼사 공부시 공부시 아니 되네 라기니가 배마 답제도 가마 좀 되네 도저 가고 생각하면서 가게 뒤에 타고도 두배성가 다이도 무르무르마스 다이도 무르무스 다이도 무르무르 마무니 소하 공바시 되네 뒤 가서도 다 거래 지고서로들 아니 들리잖아 가서도 지주 자매가 소 엄마 알아봐서 나 디디디디도 엄마 알아봐서 좀 봤으면 거대 되네 땡가 땡데가 소가 엄마 예다 와 샤마나 이소스 되네 거래 난 거제도 숨지 공바시
And so then we again now start to establish the suitable seating arrangements at our own heart center. Again, reflecting on the state of cyclic existence being in the nature of suffering. And indeed, whilst within we cannot hope for any fully qualified happiness, so we must gain definite emergence from there. And that renunciation is marked by the lotus mandala seat. That again, thinking how all inner and outer phenomena lack any objective existence, even at the atomical level. We reach that point of the mere negation of the object of negation. Again, producing the sun disk mandala seeds. And then from that basis of dependent origination, knowing that we can create all the causes, we dedicate ourselves to the attainment of enlightenment for the benefit of all. And that mind of enlightenment is symbolized by the moon disk mandala seed. And then we again utter the invocation verse twice. So glorious and precious root Guru, can take the lotus and moon seed placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first, the figure of the Buddha moved down through our central channel, and then through the second arrives at the pre-prepared seat. And at the end of the third, they have being established there until we attain the state of enlightenment. We rejoice in that. And then the four petals of the lotus fold over and are sealed at their tips by a white five-pronged Vajra. That then package is surrounded by three mantras, the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination in a clockwise direction.
다 랑게 니가 요소 라마샤자 생게 네바디 아니 고소도 다 고송 돌아 왜서바 바도 매버 트네 왜서바도 트네 랑게 지모네 간디가 발라 왜서게 참네 아니 토마메 디버치도 개바도야 아니 지가서도 다 간제 지그 고소도 다 미게 좁은 거 투를 다 개발라서 다 간제 제배 하나마다 라제 하나마다 세디야 생가마디 가마 토마메버서 디바데 디바 컨디션 나니 마 되죠 장시 다바 중수 삼사 공부시 다가네 지가 소다 도마다 가와 장주스 말라와가 더 가와 상가게 다치다 개발라서 다 세디야 생가마디 가마라서 도마 컨디션에 디 담제다 개와 녀바 컨디션 바 장시 다바 다 야고시고 중수 삼사체 다가네 지가 아니 지가 다 지가 최주발라 다 개체보다 랑게 류대당 그거래 다가네 셈대당 거래 류셈게 다 교연거리지는 바 장시다 다가네 지가 류게 지가소라 다가자 중식 커만요 봐다 자롱데 til레 교연거리 쳐봐야 내가 봐 중식 커만요 봐 커요 봐 자롱 til레 냠자 중간에 야쇠네 아니 배 저거 또바게게 아니 저거 류다 생원원에 배 통계 차와 야고 중수 삼사체 아니 하고도 아빠 뉴도 산제 고마 토발에 교연체시도 담에게 나셔 이버려 근데 이제 담에 나셔 교연 탐제 봐 다네 가나타자 딱바람 삼바시 차도 야고 중수 삼사 고마체.
And so, and then from within the lotus package, and there is the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha sending out countless rays of light which permeate through our entire body, every cell of it, from the crown of our head to the soles of our feet, affecting a very thorough purification of all negativities that we have accumulated since the beginningless time, particularly centering on the negativities of refraining from the ethics of avoiding the 10 non-virtues, that all of those negativities have been purified, all naturally occurring negativities and all those proscribed by the Buddha. all the negativities associated with this life, the ones previous to this, and going back to beginningless time, the infractions of the vows, the Pratimaksha vows, the Bodhisattva vows, and the tantric vows, and then all the any kind of disrespect to who's shown from our parents to our parents up to our gurus, and then all of the negativities that have kind of like really impacted upon our ability to engage in spiritual practice. We need a fully fit mind and a fully fit body to really engage in our practice of the Dharma. So any faults or any sickness of the body and mind is completely purified. That we have also, any other issues related to the degeneration of the elements of the channels, winds and drops in our own systems are completely all revived and rebalanced. That also the main problem impacting on our being able to quickly attain the state of enlightenment being ordinary appearance, that is completely nullified and swapped for a pure appearance.
Order, so the shit to long the Nelega, Lama Shajas and good Lenji, so the Lama Shayas and Kula Juso, substance. So the shit to assembly Lama Shayas and to the Lenji, so the same the Lama Shayas and Tula Juso, substance. Rangel Lunga is Lama Shajas and Kusungo, Yemajuso, so such a T. Dewat, they were talking about the Tedonis, may she so such a Rangin Nessa and Nedia, Lama Shajas and the Betabish of the Juso, such a Lama Shajas Kurjuate, Tele Nala Rashi Meba Kumasha, Tele Lugale Sepat, Lama Shajasinga, Pado Meba Tune, same day red and the Lama Shajasinga, and the Chazawa Rede, and the Casa, the Timbala Tene, the Datanja, Kijig, Lama Shajasinga Kusu to the war, you make your something. The Daganesa and Ned, the Dagan Jatan, Lama Shajasinga, Tavish to Josu, something. That's some Jatamja, Lama Shajasinga Sala Kogi, San Nimateri, go to so, the Kawako. Simja Tanja Lama Shajas and Sala Koba, then to each of the Suzy Gawa Karituba, then to go so to you did them to do some Yoma, so the Chati and the Dewati gave a lot of Tombatin, they don't use me, she gets so Kumacha.
Then through the combination of my own most subtle wind acting as a substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of Buddha. And then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is transformed into the enlightened mind of a Buddha. Now I see my own body, speech, and mind as inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. I can rejoice in this. And again, this brings forth a sense of bliss which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness. The place I'm in also is transformed from an ordinary place into the celestial abode of an enlightened being. Now seeing myself as a fully enlightened being, and also completely lacking any inherent existence, even at the atomical level, I send out countless rays of light from my own heart center, equal in number to all of the sentient beings in all the 6 realms of existence. And as the light permeates and dissolves into them, they are completely purified of all negativity without exception, and they can accumulate all positive qualities to spontaneously arise as fully enlightened beings. The place they are in is also purified of any degeneration or fault and becomes a pure celestial abode of enlightened beings. Again, I rejoice in what has occurred. I've been able to lead today all sentient beings to that state of enlightenment, therefore fulfilling this goal. How wonderful that is. I'm also cognizant of the fact that this leading of all sentient beings to the state of enlightenment and all the virtue that has facilitated that, and myself as the agent of that virtue, all completely empty of inherent existence, even at the atomical level, and it's merely imputed by thought. This brings forth again the sense of bliss, which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and
올라서 다 단단 것도 삼사는 몇 번 이제 그러면 문에 걸어 되다 내려오죠 말봐 이나양 단단 삼로 땅원에 신전에 아니 저게 심지 단제 산제 살아 아니 다 거발라 랑산제 삼 콤바마도 탐매 버려 랑산제 사이 콤바 토발라 아니 돈이니지 뭐 저거 랑줄을 맞지 탐매 버려 다 되네 이마 인자 다 가르쳐 그랬으나 다 가라 저게 지금 대화 중에 동네 중에 다 전화 녀나 되나 사나 투나 개나 타마 시바이네 디 대다 담자 아니 돈이 닝부 닌지 닝부 저거 람규라 게게 튕게다데 디 튕게사 게게다 데게는 지금 아니 가서다 다 가자 저 람도 키도 봐 지금 다 제디 게치 모르도 와 다들 뭐 어다들 제토바 지기 제토바쇼 제토바 다기 지기 대다 쳤는 걸 라마 투비 하고 징글라 또 고바시에잖아 와다 가자 삼로
And of course, we're operating at the level of aspiration and imagination now. But when we dedicate, we really dedicate as sincerely as possible that this actually will be made manifest as quickly as possible. And also, the very fact that I must make it happen. It's important that I really take on a kind of personal responsibility for what occurs. Therefore, every moment of life, and it should be that which is imbued with compassion and with the wisdom of emptiness as much as I possibly can, whether it's good or bad, whether it's something that is, whether I'm sick or well, whether even at the point of death, that every moment is to be seen as conducive condition for accumulating these precious causes, and no moment is to be seen as an inconducive condition for that. It's very important that I can take every moment of life, every instance, bad, good, or indifferent, onto the path. And please, Guru Deity, please bless me to be able to make this so.
La ma san ye du ne do chi ya ma le ba ne sa la gu ma ra
Can you na ke pana ke panya ba me ya gong lu pe so gong ni da wa re ma ke pana ke panya ba me gong ne gong lu pe Gowe Shinkan de Fendang de Wong Tere Si Wong Shabe Si
Oh boy, Oh boy, Gai Jian Jian Tu Jian Song Gai Ba Lo San Zhai Bie Xiao Lai So Wai Liep Miao Miao Zai Yue Jie 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 Miao Jie Miao Wu Bu Jia Miao Dai Jian Jian Tu Jian Song Ba Lo San Zhai Bie Jiao Lai So Wai De.
You are Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of compassion, not aimed at full existence, and Joshua, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception. Tsongkhapa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of snows, Losang Drakpa, at your feet, I make request.